everybody. This is the Parent Exchange, and we are live this Friday. And so glad to have you all here with us. And today our guest is Dr. Jody Graf with Visions in Education, education provider in California. And Dr. Graf has many years of experience in the education sector and working with families doing remote and distance learning. So we're really excited to have her here today to learn from her and learn more about the work that they're doing in California and how they're serving families, and just to tap into her expertise. And so we'll just kick it off here. Dr. Graf, if you'll just tell us a little bit more about your professional experience and Visions in Education and what all you guys are doing.
Hey, sure, happy to. Thank you. And thanks so much for having me today. Wow, so I'm 34 years young into education. This has been my entire career. I started off as a teacher, which I always like to say at the heart, I'm always a teacher. At least I'd hope so. And went into administration in a large school district in California, San Juan Unified School District, a great district. But because it was so large, what was nice is I had a lot of opportunities as a teacher and then as an administrator to, serve families in a lot of different settings within that district. And so serving from anywhere from like a Title I school to a parent option school, to a middle school, and then got to work on a school community grant, which was wonderful. And then about 14 years ago, I think probably about the time I had about 14 years of working within a traditional environment, I started to think that maybe there was something about this charter environment that I'd like to explore a little bit more, and certainly wanted to learn about, just to see if there's a way to support and, impact students in a new and different way. And so I went over to Visions in Education Charter School and started as the director of instruction, and then I became the superintendent about 12 years ago. I've been serving in that role since.
Wow. And so tell us a little bit about the school. I looked at the website, and you guys kind of have your fingers in a little, like 3 different areas, right? You deal with homeschool, and then California has these independent study programs. So can you kind of tell us about the different areas where you're serving families?
Sure. So we're an independent study charter school, and what that means for us in California is that if you're an independent study charter school, you have like a nonprofit. You have your own governing board, and they are, the governing board that kind of gives oversight to your program. If you're independent study like we are able to also serve not only the area that we're authorized out of, so we're authorized out of San Juan Unified School District, they're our authorizer, and they're located in Carmichael, California. But because they're located in Sacramento County, we can also then, an option for us is to be able to serve students within the contiguous counties. And there just so happens that there's 8 counties that touch Sacramento. And so as such, our ability to serve students is pretty far reaching. We actually serve about 6,500 students right now across those 9 counties. And we, as you said, Tillie, we have 3 different programs. We have a program that is designed for families who would like to do homeschooling. And for that program, we serve about 4,000 students across those 9 counties. And then we have and that homeschool program is a K-12 program, so it's actually TK through high school. And then we have what we call a 9-12 independent study program, which serves 9th through 12th graders. We've got about 2,000 students in that program. And then we have what we call a university prep program, which is a program designed for students who are looking to make that kind of quick transition into a 4-year college experience, and serve about 500 students within that program.
Wow. So in your homeschool program, are you just providing curriculum to students, or is there live instruction? Like, what's that look like, a homeschool program?
Yeah, great question. So with our homeschool program, we we have teachers who are assigned what we call, their caseload. And so they're meeting with families, the parent educators who are interested in homeschooling. And they go and they meet with the parents, not right now. Right now they meet virtually, but in the ideal setting, they're meeting with them in their homes and planning their educational plan out for the students that they're homeschooling. And what we offer them is, access to curriculum. And then we also have what we call vendor services. What I really like about our model in homeschooling is it's very much integrated into the communities in which our families live. Serving 9 counties, it's really easy to feel like, where is this school I belong to that's, hundreds of miles away in some ways. And so we really pride ourselves in saying that, we are right there in your backyard. So we have a lot of vendor services that students and families can access in our homeschool program. So what that looks like is, my student wants to take karate, or they want to take horseback lessons, or they need some extra tutoring, or they want to take piano lessons. And so they access the resources within their community to augment and enrich that learning experience for them. And so we also provide that avenue for them to make those partnerships through the contracts we have with those service providers, as well as a way to then reimburse those service providers for their service. So it's kind of a nice, not only like an economic support system for an environment, but definitely a community enriching environment too.
I love that because we hear so much about, homeschool, parents are on your own. Like, you got to figure it all out. And for you to be able to support them with the curriculum and teachers and having that interaction in the home, I think is really unique. Now, that's a tuition-based program, right?
What do you mean when you ask that?
So do the parents, they pay you for the curriculum, like they would order it online or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
When we hear about homeschooling, usually parents are paying that out of pocket. Is that how it works?
Oh, so yeah, thanks for expanding on that. No, that, part of the funds we receive as a school from the state are funds then that we make accessible to our families through our arrangements of contracting with these vendors, so that we have gone through the process of, vetting them, doing background checks and so forth, and then provide to families, here's a menu of options that if you need tutoring, if you want piano lessons, if you would like to take karate lessons, then these vendors that we are partnering with, and they happen to also be community members within your community that you can access. And so we manage all of that for families, resources. And then, that's not to say that families may and do, expend their own money for other enrichment activities they want that maybe we don't, wouldn't be appropriate for us to approve, but they take advantage of. But we do provide them the curriculum, the content, and then also these enrichment activity so that they can just continue, because our whole goal is to, the whole child, right? Like, maybe if they were going to a traditional setting, they might be able to take music lessons through a band program or something. So to the degree that we can offer that through their partnerships, all the better.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I think parents in other states will be telling their policymakers we'd like something a little more like California. And then your other programs, they're part of the charter community in California.
So the whole school is really a charter school. We just have the 3 academies just to make some distinction between how families want to be served and how students want to access their learning. And so homeschooling is one of those academies. And then the other 2 are, there are other 2 avenues that, if I'm a high school student and it could be anybody. It could be I'm a high school student and I suffer from anxiety, and it really is too much for me to show up to that traditional environment on a daily basis. And so I might like also to be independent. I might be part of the independent study program where the parent component is not as required. I mean, it's always appreciated and definitely valued, but it could be that you are working independently, and the agreement with your family is that, you're meeting with your teacher, not at home if, there's not a parent there, but meeting with them in a public setting like a library or one of our learning centers to continue to receive your education. And with that program, we deliver a lot of that learning through online means. And so students can access that 24/7.
So you have learning centers. Are they in each county that you're in, or how many learning centers do you operate?
You know, we actually, we only have a couple, and one of them is within the, they're all, you know, within the county we reside. So they're all in Sacramento, which doesn't do much for the areas outside of our county. It's one of the unfortunate outcomes of legislation in California where they have kind of removed that ability to offer students kind of that safe place for them to meet. So we work around that. Our teachers do a great job of, you know, meeting with students in libraries, other public settings that are really conducive to that. But we, as a school, can't have anything that gives the appearance of, you know, kind of a building that we are occupying in other districts.
Right. That's one of those policy implications that,
Yes.
you know, our policymakers may be well-intentioned, but sometimes there's consequences, and
Yeah.
families come in, you know, in the schools that really want to serve them. California really is, you know, just this kind of weird outlier when it comes to these schools are authorized, you know, in Colorado. If we have a school that's offering multi-district online education, you know, the school can be based in Denver, but they're going to pull kids from the Western Slope and the San Luis Valley, and it's not this kind of crazy continuous county kind of thing going on. So I think it's important for families to understand how the policy implications that go on and how it affects how you can deliver education to families.
It more and more so, you know, and I think it's, you know, unfortunately just because of, you know, scarcity, right? Like resources are a little more scarce, and so it tends to ramp up and tighten and kind of make policies a little more restrictive, which is really unfortunate because, you know, in the long run we know that you know, students can suffer from those impacts. But I'm hopeful actually that, you know, one of the outcomes may be with COVID-19 is experiencing this medium. Many will go, oh no, goodness, I do not stay in this medium learning. But our hope is that it will be maybe the beginning of a really good conversation about, are there more students who maybe, particularly at the older ages, you know, could provide them opportunities to learn in an environment like this, and also access those other really important resources that help them grow and develop, you know, as young adults.
I think there's some lessons to be learned from your program, because we're hearing more states say, you know, we're going to offer families 3 options in the fall. You can come back to the brick and mortar building full time. You could do a hybrid blend, and then you could do full-time online. We just saw Oklahoma, a school district there. That's their plan going into next year. And here's your program that's been actually providing that for years. Right. And what an amazing resource you would be to these traditional public school systems that are trying to figure it out now after this coronavirus.
You know, it's so true. It's and we've done some reaching out to try to help people. It's, you know, we're a 20-year-old school, which is, you know, in charter world is, you know, we're one of the mature ones.
Yeah.
But what's exciting about that is we have really learned from our mistakes, and, you know, we've already fallen down many times and gotten back up. That I think hopefully we can help, you know, some of the school districts and schools that are trying to make their way through this next stage of what it's going to look like, be able to avoid some of those pitfalls. Yeah, because I really am hopeful that, you know, when I particularly look at, you know, high school kids and the offerings that something like a online environment, not completely online, I don't think that's where we all want to be, but you know, that they could access maybe community college. What we always say about our kids, which is great, is they're not regulated by a bell. You know, their work is outlined for them. They know what they need to do, and they get to have you know, kind of get to dictate that time, if you will. And so if they need to work, if they want to go attend a community college class, if, you know, if they have other interests, they get to pursue those because the whole of their day is available to them. And so it's kind of exciting when I think of maybe that's a future we're going to head toward for our young adults.
I think those of us that have been in the virtual, online, blended learning world we're really excited. We're like, this is our time to shine, and more people are getting exposed to, you know, what my family benefited from, and we want them to have good experiences. So that's why, you know, I'm just so excited that I get to talk to folks like you every week and highlight the good work that you're doing and the 20 years of experience, which is, you know, pioneering. And, you know, and why go and reinvent the wheel? It pains me to see these districts that are trying to, you know, cobble together programs and technology. And I'm like, no, we've run all the traps. Like, use us, talk to us. We want to help. We want you to be successful. So talk a little bit about, well, were you guys affected by the COVID-19 school closures? Did the crisis have any kind of impact for the school or your families?
You know, yeah, I think it did. I mean, it didn't like on the, could we still have learning? Could learning be delivered? Absolutely, because we've been in this medium. So that really went off without a hiccup. I think it was really attending to the idea that, you know, we're all about relationships, and it was really hard for people, I think, psychologically to not be able to connect. You know, I think initially the novelty of in this environment was okay, but then it wore off pretty quickly when you couldn't really have, you know, just be with people you really care about and tend to them in the ways that you like to. So while we always say, yeah, we were built for this moment, you know, as humans, we really weren't built for it. So, but you know, we're through it now. We did our virtual graduation. That's up today on our website for our graduates to be celebrated. And, you know, people did lovely things as everybody did really all around the world to kind of recreate moments you had to recreate. But yeah, make no mistake. I mean, you know, because we have our systems and our structures in place, and we have a phenomenal technology team. So we really do a lot of our own building of our technology infrastructure, so that we like to take a real systems approach. So our whole system is kind of a nested system in that we've built the platforms that our students need access to and our families need access to that kind of create a little bit of a bubble that protected us, I think, from probably the hardships that others are experiencing right now.
Yeah, thank goodness. We're grateful for that with all of the challenges that we face with, you know, families have lost jobs and, you know, just everything, though our kids had continuity in education. And I think that was the biggest blessing. I think that, you know, educators and the students could just keep going. And, you know, that I hope our students won't have some of that COVID learning loss that we see a lot of folks worried about right now, that they were able to continue. Talk a little bit about, is there a typical vision student? Like, you guys just serve one population of students, or what kind of students do you serve?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I wouldn't say there is a typical. I think I would say in our early years, probably more so. You know, I think, you know, particularly for homeschooling, we've always said, you know, families who homeschool, it's such a tremendous commitment. You know, I'm always really inspired by their commitment. You know, I have my own child. I didn't homeschool, but our families are, we used to say our traditional homeschool families, it's like before the child was born, they knew this is what they were doing. And I think for a long time in our history that we experienced a lot of families who were just looking for, you know, a program that could serve what their interests are. I think over the years, probably the last 10 years, that's changed, where families for a host of reasons now are seeking homeschool or independent study that have brought a really rich diversity and variety to why it's important this pathway be as wide as it is, because, you know, we have, you know, anywhere from, professional athletes who just needs, again, that time that's not regulated by a bell schedule, to students who suffer from anxiety, to other health issues, to, you know, students who have to work. And so how can they, you know, accommodate that and make money for their family and also get their education at the same time? And, you know, families who still, you know, maybe this is what they've wanted to do, but more importantly, you know, really saw that for their children, being able to keep them a little bit safer, homeschooling might be a solution. So yeah, just a host of reasons that families find their way to us.
Yeah, I think that's a universal experience with homeschool online families, that there really isn't a typical student. And that's why when I talk to folks that talk about, well, only a certain type of kid should be able to use this model, and I have to say, whoa, wait, because we've seen kids from every socioeconomic background, race, creed, religion, succeed in these schools. And so I would hate to put some kind of enrollment criteria or barrier to enrollment to a family, because I think really parents know their kids best, and they should be making those decisions, and the kids should have at least an opportunity to explore the option and find out, is it the right fit for them. What are some of the challenges that you see for kids that come from the brick and mortar setting? We just had millions of kids across the country transfer from they made this huge leap from brick and mortar setting to an online or remote setting, and we heard about the challenges. What are some of those initial challenges, and how do you all support those kids to get them on the right track?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, in this environment, you're really probably talking more to our 9-12 independent study schools, because our homeschool families, they're not really in this online environment much. So that the transition for families, probably for kids too, is just, how do you, now that you don't have a bell schedule regulating you, how do you self-regulate? There's still a fund of work that needs to be completed, concepts you need to learn, and you're going to take deep dives in some of them. So how do you know when to come back up to make sure you get the rest of the work done? So it really becomes just acclimating to this idea of you are self-regulating, you have a lot more freedom available to you. And so how do you manage that freedom so that you accomplish what you need to accomplish in the time frames you have to accomplish it? That's probably the biggest thing. I think with homeschool families, unfortunately, they get a bad rap for thinking that they're, isolated and kids don't get socialized, and that's really not the case. I find that if anything, because they're not regulated as much as they might be, again, by, other schedules, that there's a lot more freedom to take advantage of, more things that get them out and about and engaged, in learning activities within their community or beyond. Yeah, I think time management is probably for our high school kids the biggest, adjustment.
Yeah, I know we've heard, oh, but you guys had it so easy, and I'm like, this has not been easy for our families, because they are in the community. They do their school, but like you said, they have the freedom and flexibility to go and pursue all those passions. And just like everybody else, music lessons were canceled, your homeschool co-op was canceled, the gym program at the Y was canceled. So all of those things that our families value, we value the education, but then we value the flexibility and the freedom to be active and follow our passions. And just like everybody else, like it all, overnight disappeared. And that was, that's traumatic. It just changed everything. So while we're still learning from home, and maybe our kids are working ahead and faster and getting more done, they still are missing out on all those things that make school great, the special things. Do you guys provide like electives and clubs or activities for students?
We do. We have electives that they can do. A lot of times, if they're doing clubs or anything, it's their teachers are really good about bringing groups together, and so they might, because they're the ones that have the best sense of the students that they support who have common interests. So they might bring, like we had a teacher a couple of years ago bring together a group of students to do photography because she had enough students on her caseload. And there was a few other students that photography was something they were interested in. So I find that those become more organic as they grow. We partner also with some other, groups. Like we have a great partnership out of UC Davis, which is a campus here close to us. And we'll have them come out and do some STEM program activities, which is also looking at how do they mentor maybe first-time college-going students and their families. So again, it's kind of more organic and based on the need of the students that we're serving at that time to develop those clubs.
Yeah, really personalized to what their interests are and what they need as students. One of our Facebook fans here, Lori, said, learning to be an independent learner and learning time management was a huge help to my son when he started at CU Boulder. Is that your experience? Do you hear from your alumni that they were better prepared going into higher ed?
Yeah, I'm really glad she said that because I would have forgotten maybe to mention that. But I think that's one of the other advantages is that we always say to our kids, you really are prepared for the next leg because and we know that transition to college, well, one, the dropout rate, and you won't hear this in college because you think that they lasted because they got there the first year, but boy, the second year is really hard. Students leave after that mainly because they haven't figured out this idea of how you manage your time, and they feel so isolated. And so, going through independent study in high school is kind of an earlier, safer way to try to figure out all those, things around not only time management, but now what do I do with time on my hands?
Yeah, I know from our family's personal experience, my son, when he went to college, he even had professors ask, like, where did you go to high school? Because his academic maturity was different than his peers because he did online for 10 years. And so by the time he graduated, he really understood, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm in control of. And there's no teacher over your shoulder. And there's not, 25 other classmates, keeping things. You're really responsible for your own time and, a master of your own learning. So I know it really benefited from us. Your students, they go on to high school, college, military?
They do all the above, we'll have students that will go to four-year universities, state colleges. Many will go to community college and then armed forces, and some right into work, if that's also where they're headed.
Yeah, it's important that we get kids ready for whatever their destiny is, whatever, get them to their full potential, whatever that looks like. And even if they don't, how many kids do we know that maybe they don't go the first year or second year, but eventually they go on to higher ed? So, we just got to get them ready for all those scenarios. What about students, reluctant learners, struggling students, students with learning differences? Do you accept those students? Are you serving those students?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we really pride ourselves on, that like within our authorizing district, they probably serve about 16% special ed, and they're a 40,000 student district, and I think we're at 15% of our students are students with special needs, which is really exciting and what we find is it's predominantly in our homeschooling, because even of that 15%, they probably make up 16% of our special ed students. But what we know, and there's no mistake, that families, after, being with their child and maybe even discovering for the first time their child has, some learning challenges, that they're trying to see how to best meet those. And I think they're starting to see that maybe homeschooling and being closer to those issues and supporting their student and their development early on is helpful. And so to me, again, another really important and vital reason why our pathway needs to be as wide as it can, because, I think it offers families a way to support their students earliest when the early intervention is going to make all the difference. So we're really pleased that we get to offer that and see that and support our students who have those needs. And same with our high school students who come, who we have, in our 912 academy that I spoke of. I would say those are our students who probably, they went to the traditional high school, and they were, it doesn't take long in the traditional high school, at least in California, first 2 years of high school, if you failed a couple classes, you're not going to graduate on time in that environment. And so we have, most of our students come to us around their sophomore year. And that's when they've realized that they're not going to, graduate at the same time if they remain in that setting. And so they'll transition over. And the good news is that, if you got that one-on-one connection with a really significant adult, which they do with their teachers, it really is, the springboard they need to kind of get back on track and find their way. And then one person attending to them kind of throughout that experience makes all the difference. Because that's the other thing that happens, I think, is that our young people start engaging with so many adults, starting like 8th grade in some cases, right? Maybe even younger. And I think they're not ready to code switch that quickly. And so they're highly successful once they come here and get to make that, connection with that one adult who's going to usher them through, their next, place and station that they want to get to.
I think that's important for, our parents to hear, because we hear so much, charters cream schools or they don't serve special needs students. And we know that's just a myth. It's just not true. And I loved how you said, a wide pathway. We really want to make these schools available to as many different kinds of students that are out there. What's the parent involvement look like? Obviously, homeschool, they are the hyper connected parent engagement group. And then, but what does it look like for your other two programs? What's the role of parents in the school?
Sure. In 912, it's really connecting with the parent, the teacher who's working with their student. And the really the beauty behind that is it's no different for parents, I think, than it is for students. When you enter into our environment, you really are connected with a couple people. You're connected with your teacher, your counselor, your administrator. That's 3 personalities you have to engage with. When you're in any other comprehensive experience, you're engaging with 5 times that. And what we like is that we really can talk about what needs to happen, how do we support you. And I think for parents, also in our environment, is because we have this really availability 24/7 with this connectivity, and we're very skillful at it. Our teachers will get texts, they'll get emails from parents, but that can, kind of keep them engaged and connected the way they need to. Because we know that with our 912 kids, our parents are, not as engaged or involved as they can be, because they're working and they're doing whatever, right? But they have, again, kind of 3 key sources that they have to interact with, and that's it. And I think that's easier to keep track of. And then for our university prep program, you might find those families a little bit more engaged, just because their students are a bit more driven, and also, are really aspiring to achieve some things that I think their families are just making sure that they stay kind of running the same pace with them.
Now, do those students in the university prep program, how does dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment, does that happen in California? Are students taking advantage of that?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we are. In all 3 of our academies, if you're in the high school ages and you want to start doing some concurrent enrollment and attending community college, you can, which is great. We'll have some students, finish their first 2 years of community college before they, right at the same time they've graduated.
Fantastic.
Powerful. Yeah, just get to start in a whole different place.
That's great for the students, and it's great for the parents' pocketbook.
Yes, it is.
Get some of that tuition covered is always helpful. That's awesome. What else we talk about socialization a lot, our homeschool and our online families. These kids kind of have these, a stigma that maybe they're backwards or they don't socialize. Is that your experience with your families?
Yeah, not not at all. I find, so I have one child, I have one son, right? So he hung around adults a lot because he had hung around, us. And so what I find is I will find that our homeschooling kids are comfortable with adults just because, they're spending more time with adults. But they're also, what with that comes kind of some confidence also that I really appreciate and respect, and that they're able to engage and have conversations that I think are going to be exciting to have as we enter even into these new, layers of trying to peel back who we are as a society, to know that, we've got some confident young kids out there who are not going to shy away from having conversations and talking about things and talking about them at a deep level. And I think part of that comes with, being able to think through concepts, with other people and other people older than you. But, beyond that, I think, they're highly social. They're engaged in things. Again, the benefit of homeschooling is that you're not regulated by a bell. They're not waiting for the kids to get out of school so to be able to go to that museum and see what's going on, or go participate in that other class that's happening at the, park and recs. So parents are really actively, looking at the whole child, as you would expect, and making sure that they're engaged in a lot of different activities.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. So with this COVID-19 school closures and knowing that, we may have periods of social distancing come the fall if this virus gets a second wave, are you hearing more interest from California families in trying something new? Or maybe they did a trial run with distance learning and figured out, wow, my kid really thrived or felt better in this environment. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, Tillie, what I'm hearing is, and we saw this, we had a lottery just about 3 weeks ago now. We were increasing our enrollment in our homeschool program by about 400, and we had 1,000 people who wanted to go for openings. And that's not uncommon, not only in this year, just kind of every year. So more and more environment as people come to understand what it is, and just as we down the myths of what it's not. Yeah, and I think we fully expected, and we weren't surprised. A lot of families are just uncertain about child go back with great condition schools going to put in place. There's just still, I think, some trepidation that's natural. They're going to look for where are the options that are.
Yeah, we're getting a little technical difficulties here, but I think, 1,000 applications for 400 seats is pretty incredible. I know we have school in North Carolina that's facing the same situation, and my worry as a national advocate is that we're going to have a lot of parents that want this option, and that there's caps in enrollment and policy barriers that are going to limit access for families. Is California anticipating anything like that? Do you have any concerns, legislatively that maybe we need some remedies to make sure that families have access?
Yeah, great question too. We in California.
I'm always nervous to ask, but for as a parent, I worry that, when a parent doesn't have access when they really need the option.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think, and in California, we are, charter schools are unfortunately really under fire, and what we're called in California is kind of like this non-classroom based charter school. That's kind of another terminology for us. And, we're really being looked at and scrutinized, I think, because people have seen that, there's just so much more promise, quite honestly, in what we're offering. And I think the policies I would look for would be ones that, you know, again, I came from a traditional environment, and part of the reason of leaving was I saw that it was really hard to do some things in that environment without having some more flexibility available to us. And so I would like to see policies that afford flexibility to traditional environment and charter environment. I think we all want to do what's right for students, and we all want to use some really ingenuity and creativity in finding ways to build programs and services that support students in their learning. And I think we're kind of at the point where we want to go forward, and I think COVID-19 is really going to help us say we can't go back. You know, something has to be different. And so I'd look for policies that would free people up to think creatively on how do we do this differently. Our students are letting us know in so many ways that, you know, they want to be more engaged in their learning. They want it to be more exciting and more meaningful. And I think we could definitely move in that direction together.
Well, I hope if we have California parents watching that they'll drop a line to their legislators and their policymakers and let them know, you know, these are our concerns. And we've seen multiple polls and surveys come out in the last couple of weeks where parents are saying, you know, we're more open to online learning, remote learning opportunities. And, you know, we've got to make those, you know, those seats available and programming available to these families, whether it's COVID-19 or just that they've figured out that this is a better educational opportunity for their families. So I hope parents will get engaged and drive that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Because then that's who they'll listen to. I mean, hands down, as they well should. So yeah, parent voice matters.
It really does matter.
Oh.
So if you have what would your advice be to parents, or, you know, the caring adults in kids' lives, and they think, you know, maybe the traditional setting isn't right, and we want to try out homeschooling or an online or remote learning option. What are some things that they need to think about and take into consideration as they're exploring their options?
Gosh, great question. You know, I think really, you know, explore the school like you would. I mean, it's different in this environment, because even if we said come to Visions in Education, there's not a place you really come to. It's more of a, you know, you kind of get the texture of who we are by talking with us, and, you know, hopefully, you know, we've done a good job presenting who we are online so that you can see in our videos who we are and what our program's about. But we also, like many other schools, talk to other parents. You know, we know just from when we ask, you know, people when they enroll, you know, at least 70% of our families say it was word of mouth. So it really is trusting and, you know, verifying with the people who you really already have high regard for, and you trust their judgment that they're probably going to be the ones that point you in the best direction, given that they know your child probably as well as you do, you know, not as well as you do, but definitely have access to knowing your child. So I think trust the people you're talking with, but, you know, talk with the school, go reach out and make sure you talk with somebody, because in this environment, it is really hard to know what it's like, because it's not like you're going to walk into, you know, a brick and mortar school and get a sense of the culture right away. It's really going to take some time to understand that, and ask to talk with some parents. Many schools should already have something set up with, we have parent ambassadors that you can talk with, and they'd be happy to help you understand what it's like to, you know, be a starting homeschool family, because that's going to be a, you know, a steep climb if you don't have some support and some kind of guideposts along the way.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, we will put the website information in this thread on Facebook, so families can research more about Visions in Education. And you know, I'm so grateful for the work that you do, and all the different pathways that you offer for families. Every family should have those kind of robust and rich, you know, learning options. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we appreciate you know, all your expertise, and we're cheering you on. We hope that your graduates have a great summer, and wherever they end up, whether it's military, workforce, higher ed, that they go on and do great things. And yeah, thanks for being here this week with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for getting the word out and, you know, just empowering parents, you know, and helping them have access to information and knowledge to support their kids. And thanks to all of our parents for doing that work of, you know, figuring out what you need to know to do right by your child. And yeah, it's always a blessing every day that we get to support our students and families. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we couldn't do it without amazing educators like you, Dr. Graf. Thank you so much again. And everybody, that was the Parent Exchange for this Friday, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.